Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. So since many of us do end up setting some kind of reading goal for the year, sometime in the month of January, I thought what better way to close out this month than with a selection of film recommendations all based on written materials. One of today's recommendations is based on a graphic novel that satirizes the aftermath of Joseph Stalin's death. Another one is based on an award-winning debut thriller. And finally, I have one that's adapted from a 14th century Arthurian legend poem. So all three of these adaptations are really, really excellent films, but clearly cover vastly, vastly different topics. And hopefully that will kind of encourage you to explore potentially different pieces of written work that you might not have checked out before, or films that are definitely off the beaten path for your usual interests. Anyway, the ultimate goal is to encourage you to try something new and unexpected. Some of these stories are definitely not stories that I would have looked into because I checked out a number of movies, and these were these were three of the ones that stuck with me the most. But all of the ones I checked out were really, really interesting this entire week. And, you know, I wouldn't have given some of them another look, except I wanted something different, and hopefully these recommendations will result in something similar for you. As always, these recs are available to you entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. So without any further ado, let's get to the recs. Okay, so all three of today's recommendations are available via our Canopy streaming service, and the first of those is 2017's The Death of Stalin. I know from the title it sounds like one of those intense, epic, sweeping dramas, when the reality is it is a rather outrageous political satire and very, very, very black comedy. It was written and directed by Armando Iannucci and co-written by David Schneider, Ian Martin, and Peter Fellows, and this is the adaptation based on a graphic novel. This graphic novel, also The Death of Stalin, ran in France from 2010 to 2012, and both the graphic novel and the film follow the internal social and political struggle that happened right after Stalin's death in 1953. So this is a period piece, but it definitely mixes an inordinate amount of humor and fiction within very real historical events, which I absolutely love. Everything about this is just so entertaining. It is political satire, and as such, a lot of moments do border on the absurd. That's kind of the nature of this particular type of comedy. But as absurd and ridiculous as those little bits are, and you will absolutely laugh. There are moments of uncomfortable laughter and just out and out surprise laughter, and just it's just all around quite funny. But maybe what's most disturbing about it is that, again, we are bound by actual moments in history. Things happened, and really it's the reactions to those things that are based in fiction, one would hope. Having not been there, don't know exactly what all of the political leaders' responses were, but I would certainly hope that they're not what they are here. And they're not. But that's kind of what made this such an enjoyable watch. Just watch the trailer, and that sort of incredible bombastic tone is really filled throughout this entire film. The acting cast, the ensemble cast is just incredible. I think of everything, that's one of the most incredible parts of this film. It's such a strong ensemble. You have Steve Buscemi, you've got Simon Russell Beale, who's a really, really famous British stage and television actor. Rupert Friend is in here. Jason Isaacs is in here, and he's delightful as one of the major military generals. You have so many character actors in here, all of whom know exactly how to play characters that are absolutely outrageous, but still play as weirdly in the moment. And it's really quite hard to do that kind of comedy, because it really is so big, so bombastic, so out there. It's hard to develop any sense of naturalism, and they all know how to do this so well. I would say Steve Buscemi is one of those actors that I've pretty much seen everything that is available to see with him in it, and he he just does a really really good job in this particular in his particular role. Uh, and I don't want to give away who plays who, because that's kind of the fun when you discover who's playing like Khrushchev, and it's just, it really is just such a delightful, outrageous satire. Um, if you are not familiar with that particular period of history, I don't think it necessarily matters. But I do think that if you are, you get a little bit extra from it, because, again, those glimpses of names you might be familiar with, uh, uh, events you might be familiar with, and how like the historical fiction aspect of those things plays with the actual historical events. It just definitely gives different layers to the film and the story in general. But if you are looking for something kind of outrageous and absurdist and just really really marvelously well acted and put together, I 100% recommend The Death of Stalin. It is a really really fun movie. If you are interested in this particular time period, there are also translations available of the graphic novel, also very strongly recommended. But yeah, 100%, this is a must watch, and is one of my favorite picks from this whole swath of movies that I was viewing for this week's recommendations. Okay, onward to recommendation 2, and that is 2020's The Dry. So, I knew absolutely nothing about the movie or the novel upon which this is based, and I kind of feel bad about that after the fact. So, The Dry is an Australian mystery drama thriller. It's directed by Robert Connolly, who also co-wrote the screenplay with Harry Cripps, and this film is based on a novel by Jane Harper that came out in 2016. The film stars Eric Bana, Genevieve O'Reilly, Keir O'Donnell, John Polson, and everything about this movie is very, very well constructed, well thought out. And because of those things, I went back, read the book, and the book is also exceptional. And I really should have been more familiar with it. I asked friends afterward, hey, do you know this book? And every single one of them was like, oh yeah. I guess I'm not much of a thriller genre person. I like classic mysteries, more along the old British vein of like Agatha Christie, and stories like that. But I don't read much contemporary mystery or thriller at all. So those stories just kind of speed by me, and I miss out on some incredible stories like the one found here. Uh, so, if you are anything like me and were not familiar with Harper's debut novel, it was a massive hit when it came out, met with huge critical acclaim, which is wonderful for a debut author. It received a ton of international awards, and it sold more than 1 million copies worldwide. Apparently not to me. Um, I'm not going to list all of the awards that it won, but I will list some of the biggies. It won the UK Crime Writers Gold Dagger, which has been around since the 60s. Like, that is a massive award. Even I am familiar with, especially a lot of the earlier award winners. So that's a massive accomplishment. It won Sunday Times Crime Book of the Year, Amazon's Best Mystery and Thriller Novel. It won the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Mystery, and it received the Australian Book Industry Award for Australian Book of the Year. So it was beloved by both industry people and by just readers in general, which is not always the case. Like, those two things don't always meet. So yeah, it's one of those things where people really love this book, and for good reason. The story itself is just very well constructed, so well paced. And the film adaptation does such a good job of working with the source material. I mean, there are plenty of times when you have an exceptional mystery or thriller novel, and then once it's been through the changes that a lot of work has to go through in order to make it to the screen, there's just something odd or disjointed about it. And I think sometimes that's where things fall apart for me, especially within that mystery thriller genre. But this one does such a good job of really replicating pace and atmosphere. I think it's so well done, and I loved Eric Bana in this. His character in particular is so nuanced and layered, and is one that I absolutely would follow in adaptations of future stories. So uh, in this particular tale, we are introduced to Aaron Falk, who is a federal agent. After a couple of decades being away from home, he learns of this rather horrific murder suicide that happened in his hometown. He goes back and is convinced to look into the situation because something seems a bit hinky about it. The actions are not typical of the person who committed this crime, that they're saying committed this crime. At the same time, he is met with an enormous amount of hostility because he actually left town due to um, suspicions about something that had happened in his own past. So he's dealing with two mysteries at once. And then as things begin to unravel, the potentiality for those two things to have some sort of commonality. And you're also dealing with the dry, which is this incredibly dry season. Tensions are high just in general because agriculturally things are problematic, money is tight, and some of those elements tie into motive. It's just so many threads, and they all sort of wind together in this very clever, very intricate way. And I just love this kind of mystery. There are pieces of this that feel very old fashioned in the best of ways, but also very modern, very contemporary sensibilities. So, it doesn't feel, I know a lot of people who describe like classic mystery or thriller as being a bit dry, and this is ironically not the case. So yeah, if you enjoy mysteries, if you enjoy puzzling things out, this one is very well done, and it's really fun to unravel things as they become apparent. The acting is exceptional. Again, I love Eric Bana, and both the source material and its adaptation are phenomenal examples of the written version and the film version of well done mystery thrillers. Okay, my final recommendation for today is 2021's The Green Knight. I have to be honest, I have been waiting to include this film in my recommendations list for so long. I just couldn't find a way to kind of shoehorn it into any of the themes. But this movie is so fascinating. I'm such a fan. The Green Knight is an epic medieval fantasy film based on the 14th century poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And it's directed, written, edited, produced by David Lowery, who's a really famous director for having a very deft hand with kind of off-kilter films that have sort of a dreamlike quality and ethereal tone to them. I think his most mainstream movie would have been A Ghost Story with Casey Affleck, but his skill set plays so well in this genre, particularly the way that he has adapted The Green Knight. There is an otherworldly quality to it that runs rampant in certain scenes, but is sort of pervasively there throughout the entire movie. And I think to tell the story that he's telling in the way that he has decided to do, and with the shifts that he has made, you have to have that, because otherwise it doesn't quite work. You have to have that sort of uncertain, off-kilter feel, or else it's not going to be the kind of epic fantasy that he wants it to be. And like I said, he does such a great job with this particular style. You have in addition to just an incredible story based on that source material, he's crafted an adaptation that I think does a lot of different things. So if you're looking for essentially like a line by line retelling, this is absolutely not it. Not it. But if you're looking for something that sort of keeps thematically with the heart of that particular tale, this works. And it especially works well with the actors that he's selected. Dev Patel plays Gawain. I love Dev Patel. Wonderful, wonderful actor. But you've also got Alicia Vikander, Joel Edgerton, Sarita Chowdhury, Sean Harris, Ralph Ineson in here playing different roles. You have some incredible CGI work going on. And again, that tone, it is all about the atmosphere with this. It really, really is. And you need to have a deft hand with that kind of style. You have, your classic elements of this particular story. There's, epic battles. There's sort of, they're giants. There are foes. There are quests of valor and honor and courage, and temptation. It's all in here, and it plays in a really engrossing way. Like you get sucked in again because of that tone and that atmosphere. You're already basing a piece of work based on like these huge legends. Like Arthurian myth is one of those big touchstones, and everybody's going to have an opinion of what Arthurian legend looks like and feels like. Whether you're someone who's like, I want it to be bright and sunny, like Sword in the Stone, and let me tell you, you've clearly never read any of the poetry, or you're looking for something darker or very classically toned. Like, this is a very different direction, but I think that being able to look at bright and sunny and see the validity in that, being able to look at something really dark, or being able to look at something like this that is so very, I hate, like, this makes no sense, but it's got a floaty feel. Like you're almost in a dream state the entire film. All of these different feelings that you get from the same base source. It's fantastic that you are able to make such incredible stories from that. And this, I think, is a really great addition to the pantheon of Arthurian legend adaptations. I'm going to do a little spoiler alert here. Let's let a couple of seconds pass. If you hate spoilers, don't watch any further. Okay, I think that's enough of a little pause. The ending of this film is incredibly different from the ending of the poem. Like incredibly different. I'm not going to talk about exactly how, but I think that I actually appreciate the ending of this film in a lot of ways more than I ever did about that poem. I always found the ending of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight to be kind of off-putting in a little bit, in a few ways, for a lot of reasons. And again, I don't want to go into like specific details, but this one, for the story that we find within this film, makes much more sense and is in a lot of ways so much more satisfying to me. I am very curious, if you do go back and watch this, what you think. So please, if you do watch it, come back to this episode, put in your comments, like thoughts, spoiler warn it. But I mean, I am very, very curious because I did really, really like the ending. Anyway, if you are someone who likes medieval fantasy, if you are curious about Arthurian legend, if you just like incredibly well-made film, if you happen to be a David Lowery fan, even if you're none of those things, I 100% recommend this movie. It is my pick of the week. I loved it. I hope you will too. Again, 2021's The Green Knight, available via Canopy. All right, so those were my 3 recommendations for this week's Based on the Book episode. If you have any recommendations for titles that were based on written word source material, please, please, please recommend those below. I always find adaptations really fun to watch. I know a lot of people have the attitude, including myself, about the book is better, but sometimes there are some really, really valid elements when it comes to adaptations, and every once in a while you get something that was really epic and even better than the source material. So again, if you have any recommendations yourself, pop them in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I love putting these together. I love getting to deep dive into the catalog, and hopefully I will see you next week. Bye-bye.